The NBA trade deadline had a lot of Chicago Bulls fans up in arms about the players that were coming on to the team. But after seeing a couple games, are the new look Bulls better than expected, or should we allow some more time before we draw our conclusions? We're going to talk about it. And then the Chicago Bulls got some good news in regards to Josh Giddey and Trey Jones and Jalen Smith. Will there be some rotation challenges that are ahead for the Chicago Bulls? Y'all know we're going to talk about it, break it all down, but you got to hear the music first.
Cognac. Gang.
Shy Boys podcast with the Cognac Boys. I'm Cognac Boy Bobby, and I'm holding it down on today's daily episode. So if you go ahead and want to talk that Bulls basketball, even when they give you a headache, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Now, the new look Bulls, I'm not even going to lie to you. We seen some guys in the first game versus the Raptors, and then we had a number of other guys show up and join the rest of the crew versus the Denver Nuggets in the game that was really competitive at first before we ultimately let go of the rope, and Billy Donovan was like, yeah, it's on for the tank. Or he was experimenting. I'm gonna just call it how I see it. It was very strange to have Monty Buzelis have a good game like he was having and only play 4 minutes, I believe, in the fourth quarter. But nonetheless, are the new look Bulls better than expected, or is that something that we're asking about too soon? In my personal opinion, they do look solid on the basketball court as of right now, but I still think that it is too early to say that they are better than expected. I can't go off just a small sample size of 1 or 2 games for said players on the basketball court, but what I can do is say that some players look intriguing for sure. Colin Sexton did play in that Denver Nuggets game the other night. And in that game, 17 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists in just 29 minutes. And honestly, I love the energy that Colin Sexton came into the game with. I need some loose screws on my basketball team. And my man's play hard. He's tough. And he's a loose screw. He's going to bring you a lot of energy with a lot of game. I'm not going to go out there and throw shots at any of the old players because I was cheering for those guys too. But there were some guys that were had a lot of energy that they could have brought to the game, but they did not have quite the basketball game to be effective as Colin Sexton was, at least in one game with the team. And I will say, I don't know what the future holds for guys like Colin Sexton, but I do know, at least in one game, I can say I love the energy and I love the basketball game that he brings for the Chicago Bulls. Now, when we talk about Anthony Simons, who played 2 games with the Chicago Bulls, in 32 minutes, he scored 22 points versus the Raptors, and then he only scored 15 points versus the Denver Nuggets. Me and C-Dub had a conversation about who do we feel is he better than Kobe White? We didn't really go down that. I just went out there and said that it's a wash because it's still new to the team and see how effective these guys can be to the team. You let me know how you feel about that. But I will say this. Anthony Simons is a bucket getter. Is that something that's sustainable for the sake of the Chicago Bulls long term? That's something that they're going to have to figure out on their own. But what I do like about Anthony Simons is that he knows how to pick and choose his shots. If he's coming off that screen, it's a shot that he does. It's a shot that he believes he ain't going to miss it. And I like guys like that. Let's be, whether you look at him as a Dame Dollar type or C-Dub want to be funny, my boy Unc be calling him EBT Dame. And I'm like, hey, it is what it is. But one thing I like is the confidence and the decisiveness coming off some of those screens, or when the Bulls absolutely need a bucket and he's able to go out there and be really effective with his handle, get to the basket if need be. But he definitely going to be chucking up them threes. And a lot of the times it looked really good. And sometimes I'm not complaining about shot selection so far in the 2 games that we've seen Anthony Simons. When it comes to guys like Jaden Ivey outside of the blooper, to where he came up the court on the side and then just threw it straight at the legs of another Chicago Bulls player. I think Jaden Ivey is a guy that you can really hone in on and hope that he can get back to where a lot of people placed him at before the leg injury. And just in 33 minutes versus the Raptors, he had 15 points, 4 rebounds, 6 assists. Versus the Nuggets, he had 10 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists. I think he does bring something to the Chicago Bulls that they can utilize as we move forward. He is a young player heading into restricted free agency after this season. I think that Jaden Ivey is somebody that's really, really intriguing, and you just want to see him receive more opportunities as we continue to push this thing forward through the rest of the NBA season. I believe we have the All-Star break coming up here shortly in just a couple days starting out. But, hey, hopefully that's an opportunity for the guys to go out there and practice with each other a little more, become familiar with each other a little more, and then we'll see what happens. But I like the activity of Jaden Ivey as well. Even though it has not been the cleanest, it has had its moments to where it appears to be intriguing for sure. And then Gershon Yabusele, muscle milk. This is what C-Dub been calling, because he might not be 7 feet, but that's a big mofo that a lot of people can't move out of the painted area. And in the game versus the Raptors, he dropped 15 points and 11 rebounds. And then versus the Nuggets, he had 12 points. And I think that that's a guy who comes in with a lot of experience, had some years in the NBA, had some years overseas, and then, made his return to the NBA. And you could tell that he has some game. He's able to go out there and be effective in the painted area, going out there playing hard and showing effort on the defensive side, and is capable of knocking down some threes. And I really like that activity, and it gives me a different sense of changing to the front court, which myself and my co-host C-Dub have been calling for the last few seasons. There looks like there is some type of change in the front court when it comes to the Chicago Bulls players. Now we move on to Nick Richardson, who caught a lob from Rob Dillingham. And I was like, hold on, when was the last time we seen a center catch a hoop in Chicago? It's been a while, y'all. But versus the Nuggets, he got 15 points and 7 rebounds, and I love the activity from him. He was on the floor diving for the basketball, and that goes to a couple other players too. These guys were getting on the basketball floor, and that shows me a lot of things. When you are able to go out there and sacrifice your body and hit the floor for loose balls or whatever it is, that shows me that you got some heart, that you're going to show some effort on the basketball court. And 15 points and 7 rebounds in just one game for the Chicago Bulls. Again, not saying it's absolutely better, but intriguing for sure. Last player to talk about is Rob Dillingham. Rob Dillingham is a player that when he was traded over here, I heard a lot of different people go out there and just say he's trash, he can't play. And I'm like, how can we come to that conclusion when he really didn't receive opportunity in Minnesota? Could there have been some validity there? Absolutely. It could have been something that you look at and you say, hey, maybe there's something that he's doing behind the scenes to where he's not receiving that opportunity. But then when you think about him coming to a young team like the Chicago Bulls, who's trying to start this new iteration of basketball, I was willing to give him a chance, because I don't like to count people out before I get to see them fully in front of my eyes and just go off the opinions of others. I can go out there and take it into consideration, but I like to draw my own conclusions. And Rob Dillingham, he played about 22 minutes for the Chicago Bulls, and he scored 9 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists, had the lob to Nick Richards, and then also had a great pass to a cutting Montes Buzelis, and Montes was able to slam it down. I seen a lot of things that I like. I talk about the handle. It was nice. You talk about the quickness and the speed that he was able to have, and the decisiveness to go out there and make some really good passes for the Chicago Bulls. I think this is one of the players that I might put him at the top of my list as most intriguing for me per se, because a lot of people counted him out. And I love, when players are being counted out and most of them appear to have chips on their shoulders, they go out there and they like to prove guys wrong. So I'm rooting for the kid. I am not going to go out there and draw a conclusion just yet. He only played in one game for the Chicago Bulls. So I want to allow him some time to see if he can continue to show that he's, can get into the rotations and remain in the rotations and see how different teams guard against him, or how can he guard versus some of the other teams. I want to see a little bit more out of this young fella, along with all of the other players. That's why I'm not going to go out there and jump to conclusions right now. I want to go out there and give him a couple more games together. Hopefully we can get them all together in some practices, and then we really get to see this team move in a way to where we could say, all right, these guys are really playing good basketball now, or these guys look like they can be contributors moving forward after this season, moving into next season. So I'm going to give it some time. I guess the minimum was the 5 games that BSC Dub was discussing on the live call versus the Denver Nuggets. But I'm willing to allow just a little bit more time. But so far, these players look like they're good. They are very, very intriguing. We're going to allow these guys some time, at least for me. That's what I would do. Now, speaking of all these players who are now in a Chicago Bulls uniform, I see some challenges rotation-wise coming to fruition, potentially starting tonight. We have reports that Josh Giddey, Tre Jones, and Jalen Smith have all been upgraded to doubtful and will be if the decision will be made to see if these guys can go out there and play in tonight's game right before the tip. And the challenges that I see is, what are you going to do if you want to go out there and give Tre Jones some minutes? Who minutes is going to decrease? Josh Giddey got to get his minutes if he plays, right? Because you want to see if these players can fit next to Josh Giddey, and how do they necessarily fit? Can Anthony Simons be that scoring threat that we wanted Kobe White to be? You know what I'm saying? And Kobe White did some good things alongside Josh Giddey, but does Anthony Simons look better next to Josh Giddey? Does Jaden Ivey look better next to Josh Giddey? How does one of these other guys fit next to Tre Jones? Do you go out there and challenge and play some things on the basketball court? We're going with 2 small guards in Tre Jones and Rob Dillingham. It's a lot of different questions when it comes to how Billy Donovan is going to allow these guys to get minutes on the floor, but then also allow these guys to utilize those minutes so you can properly evaluate this team. It's very, very interesting stuff. It's things that we're definitely going to have to keep our eyes on. I understand some people is like, these guys are trash. I told y'all I'm fanning how I want to fan. I'm not encouraging anybody to look at the game how I'm going to look at it, but I'm trying to see how these guys can go out there and mesh together so we can continue to move this thing going and hope that we won't continue to be in mediocrity moving forward. And then another thing with Jalen Smith, you've gotten good minutes out of Nick Richards so far, out of Yabusele so far. How does that fit in and align with Jalen Smith coming back now? Do you go out there and you completely shut Lachlan Obridge out? Do you completely take away a lot of minutes from Yabusele? What do you do about Nick Richards, who looked like he has some game, and he's the younger guy. He's younger than Yabusele. So how do you go out there and make sure that these guys are getting minutes, and how can you go out there and give them so many minutes to where you could properly evaluate these players as we continue to push through the season? So there's going to be some rotation challenges. I don't want to go out there and say that this X player absolutely should be playing, but I'm saying if you want to get a good look at Rob Dillingham, he got to get minutes. If you want to get a good look at Jaden Ivey, he got to get minutes. That's all I'm saying. How do you go out there and work through this process to ensure that you're taking care of these guys so you can properly evaluate these guys? Because Jaden Ivey is walking into restricted free agency. Rob Dillingham is a young player that's going to be right there. You have expiring contracts with Colin Sexton and Anthony Simons. Do you want to keep both? Are you planning to just keep one? How are you going to align these guys well enough to where you can evaluate and say, yep, this player, we want him for 2026-27 season? How do you do that? So it's going to be some challenges for these guys, and it's going to be the same thing for the guys in the front court as well. Do you want to see more out of Lachlan, who in some moments he looked like he belonged, and then in some moments it looked like he's trying to find his way? How do you figure this all out? So it is what it is. We'll see what it is. And I believe Lachlan is still on his two-way contract. So we probably won't have to worry too much about Lachlan. But the others with Jalen Smith, Yabusele, and Nick Richards, you got to be able to find a way. Do you go with the double bigs? And then you still got to worry about Isaac Okoro getting his minutes. Is he a part of your future plans? We have to completely try to figure this out and try to make sense of it. And who's going to be the odd man out? That's something that Billy Donovan and his coaching staff is going to have to figure out. Are you just going to go out there and just say, Yabusele, you playing a lot of minutes in the first half, and Nick Richards, you're playing a lot of minutes in the second half, kind of like Billy Donovan did with Derrick Jones Jr. and Andre Drummond, which was odd, very, very odd. It was like they could never get in a rhythm to fully help the team. So we just going to be right there later today. The Bulls take on the Brooklyn Nets. And y'all know we're going to be right there covering it all, man. So hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and tune in and be all right there on the live call. It's going to be a great time. But hey, that is it for me today, y'all. I appreciate y'all for tuning in to another episode. Before you get up out of here, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell as well, man. We appreciate y'all. Make sure you always see red. And y'all already know. We're going to catch y'all on the next one for sure. Peace.
Cognac.